Adductor strains are common in sports that require quick cutting motions, like those experienced in soccer, football, and ice hockey. And the reason why is because the adductor muscles are in a stretched position and then have to quickly contract. So in this video, we'll go over an exercise progression that can be used for adductor strains. We'll go over isometric exercises, then isotonic exercises, and then ending with some plyometric exercises as we return back to sport. Isometric exercises are a great place to start loading the adductor muscles, especially when they're sensitive to load. So to do this, we'll take an exercise ball and we're going to place it between our knees. And in this position, we're going to push our knees into the ball gently at first, and then hold for 30 to 45 seconds. We can then increase the lever of this exercise by placing the ball between our heels and then squeezing together, which makes this a little bit more challenging on those adductor muscles, again holding for 30 to 45 seconds. We can then progress these isometric exercises to further increase the load on those adductor muscles. And so we'll need a chair or a bench, and we'll place our knee on the chair first. And what we'll do from here is lift our hips up off the ground so that our body is in line with that top leg. And then again, we're going to hold this position for 30 to 45 seconds. Once we're able to do that, we can start to load this in a couple of different positions by lowering our hip down, and then again, still holding in this position here, so that we're just holding in a couple of different hip ranges of motion. And then of course, we can repeat this progression by having our foot on the chair, which increases the lever, making this a lot more challenging on those adductor muscles. So again, elbow underneath shoulder here, and we're going to lift up by pulling our hips up off the ground, and then holding this position so that our body is in line with that leg. And then once we're able to do that, we can work it through a couple of different ranges of motion by changing where our hips are. So going lower in, which again makes this a little bit more challenging on those adductor muscles. And this isometric progression actually transitions well to isotonic loading for those adductor muscles. So again, we'll go back to the chair with our knee on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to slowly lift our hip up off the ground over 3 to 4 seconds, and then slowly back down to the ground. So we're trying to just load that adductor muscle through a range of motion. So 3 to 4 seconds up, and then 3 to 4 seconds back down to the ground. If the adductors weren't able to tolerate the load on the chair, then we have a couple of different exercise options to build up to that progression. So we could take an exercise band wrapped around our thigh, and then we could use a furniture slider underneath. If we don't have a furniture slider, we can use a towel on hardwood. That works as well. And what we'll do is we'll start with our legs separated just a little bit here, and then we're going to pull to slide in, so we're working that adductor muscle, and then slowly back out. Ideally, we're still doing this over 3 to 4 seconds in, and then 3 to 4 seconds out, just slowly incorporating a little bit more load with that adductor muscle. If we want to increase the tension, we can slide out a little bit further as our starting place, so that way there's just a little bit more tension on the band, and then pull into midline, and then slowly back to that starting position. Another strengthening option is to do a sumo squat. So the wider foot position increases the load on those adductor muscles, and then we'll just slowly lower ourselves down over 3 to 4 seconds, and then 3 to 4 seconds back up. And of course, we can add load to this to make this a little bit more challenging on those adductor muscles. We can finish the strengthening progression with a Copenhagen adductor strengthening exercise, which is a heavy isotonic exercise for those adductor muscles. So it's very similar to the progressions that we did before. So we'll have our foot on the chair, and then our elbow underneath our shoulder. And then the bottom leg is generally bent, but if you can also straighten that bottom leg out. It doesn't matter. And so from here, we're going to slowly lift that hip up off the ground, and then slowly back down. So we want both directions to be over 3 to 4 seconds. So it's 3 to 4 seconds up, which is the concentric muscle contraction, and then 3 to 4 seconds back down, which is the eccentric muscle contraction. We want to make sure that we're emphasizing both when we're doing this. When looking at return to sport after an adductor injury, there's two things that we need to consider. The first is end range loading. When we look at how the adductor is injured, it's typically in a lengthened position where it's stretched, and then it has to contract. So we want to make sure that the adductor is strong at that lengthened position. The second thing is that we want to make sure that it's able to tolerate quicker loads, such as when we're cutting or moving quickly. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating plyometric exercises so that it's able to tolerate those quicker loads. For end range loading, we're trying to work the hip at the end of hip abduction. So we can use an exercise band anchored to something. And what we'll do is we'll be in this position here, and then slowly try to pull in towards midline, and then slowly back. As we're able to do this at that end range position, we can actually move a little bit quicker, so that way we're working that adductor at that lengthened position. Additionally, we'd want to work the hip in a couple of different planes. So here we have the exercise band at about 45 degrees behind me, and then again starting by slowly pulling towards midline, working at that end range position here, and then as we feel more comfortable and confident, increasing the speed of the movement. For plyometric exercise, we can use some lateral hops. So initially we might start off fairly small, just hopping from side to side, and then we can turn it into a skater hop with a little bit more range of motion in those hips, and then progressing to some larger ranges of motion where we're trying to really work on that explosive power side to side. And because when we look at the demands of the sport, not only do we have side to side movements typically, but we also might have some rotation as well. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating that with our plyometrics. So we might start off with some smaller rotations here, going back and forth, and then increasing to some bigger ranges here, where we're really trying to drive into that rotation. So hopefully this exercise progression for adductor strains was helpful. If it was, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the button over here. I'll see you in the next video.